I used to leave notes in library books for strangers. One day a stranger wrote back. I had no idea it would change everything. My name is Ren, and I have always been better at writing things down than saying them out loud. It started when I was 23. I had just moved to a new city where I knew nobody, and the silence of my apartment was the kind of silence that had weight to it. I worked from home. I grocery shopped early in the morning before the stores got busy. I went entire weekends without speaking a single word out loud to another human being. Not because I was unhappy exactly, just because I had somehow ended up in a life where there was no one close enough to talk to yet. I found comfort in the library 3 blocks from my apartment, not just in the books. In the feeling of being around people who were also choosing to be quiet. There is a specific kind of loneliness that feels better in a library. Like the silence there has a purpose instead of just an absence. I started borrowing books and reading them, and then before returning them, I would write a small note on a piece of paper and tuck it somewhere inside. Never in the same place twice. Sometimes inside the front cover, sometimes between pages, sometimes at the exact page where something had made me stop and read the same line 3 times. Notes were small things, just a sentence or 2. Things like page 47 made me put the book down for a full 10 minutes. Or I read this on a rainy Sunday and it felt like company. Or whoever reads this next, I hope you are doing okay. I mean that genuinely. I never expected anyone to write back. I just needed somewhere to put the things I was feeling that had nowhere else to go. For 8 months I left notes and heard nothing. I did not mind. It was enough just to send something out into the world even if nothing came back. It made the reading feel less solitary. Like I was part of a conversation that just had very long pauses. And one afternoon I borrowed a book I had been meaning to read for years. A quiet novel about 2 people who keep almost meeting but never quite do. I made a cup of tea and sat in my window seat and opened to the first page. A piece of paper fell out, handwritten. Small neat letters it said. I found your note in the last book, the one about the lighthouse. You said it felt like someone had written it specifically for you, and you wondered if that was a strange thing to feel. It is not strange. I felt the same way. I hope whatever you are going through gets lighter soon. I left this here on purpose, hoping you would find it. No pressure to write back. But I would not mind if you did. There was no name, just the words. Sat in my window and read 4 times, and outside it started raining, and I did not move for a very long time. I wrote back. I tucked my note into the book and returned it the next day, and then tried very hard not to think about whether anyone would find it. I was not good at not thinking about it. I checked the shelf every time. I passed it that week like somehow I would be able to tell just by looking whether someone had been there. 2 weeks passed. Then I borrowed another book from the same shelf. Same section, same quiet corner of the library where I always gravitated. Something made me check inside the front cover before I even read the back. There was a note that said, I am glad you wrote back. I was not sure you would. I come to this library every Thursday afternoon. I sit by the window on the left side near the plants, but someone is clearly overwatering. I have seen you there, I think. You always have tea in a blue thermos, and you fold the corner of your scarf exactly once before you sit down. I noticed because I notice things about people who seem like they are living quietly on purpose. Do that too. Anyway, I hope the book is good. I hope you are good. That is all. I read that note standing in the middle of the library aisle, and my heart did something complicated. Had seen me. In a city where I had felt completely invisible for almost a year, someone had seen me. Not in a grand way, not in a way that asked anything from me or needed anything back. Just, I noticed you exist. And I noticed the way you fold your scarf, and I wanted you to know that. I stood there in that aisle for longer than was probably normal, holding a piece of paper and feeling something I did not quite have a word for yet. I looked toward the left window. There was someone sitting there. A man about my age with a book open in his lap and his eyes down, and the particular stillness of someone who was genuinely somewhere else inside their own head. He did not look up. I went to my usual seat, made myself open my book, read the same paragraph 5 times without absorbing a single word. We wrote back and forth for 3 more months after that. Every note a little longer than the last. Every note a little more honest than the one before it. He told me he had moved to the city for a job that had not turned out to be what he expected, and that some mornings he woke up and had to remind himself why he had come here in the first place. I told him I had moved for a fresh start. That had felt more like a pause than a beginning. That I had thought a new city would make me feel new too, and instead it had just made me feel the same but quieter. He told me about his younger brother who called every Sunday without fail just to check in even, and there was nothing new to say. I told him about my grandmother who had taught me that libraries were the closest thing to sacred she had ever found, and who used to bring me here as a child and let me pick any 2 books I wanted and never once told me to choose something educational. We never spoke out loud, never planned to meet. It was the strangest and most tender thing I had ever been part of. Entirely made of paper and careful words and the specific quiet bravery of saying true things to someone whose face you could not quite bring yourself to look at directly. Then one Thursday I arrived and went to our shelf and found a note that felt different before even finished reading it. It said, I've been coming here every Thursday for 4 months because of you. I want you to know that this, whatever this is, has been the best part of my entire year. I am not good at saying things out loud either, but I think I would like to try if you are okay with that. I will be by the window, left side, near the drowning plants. I will have a book open, but I will not be reading it. And if you sit down, I will say hello. And if you do not, that is okay too. Either way, I want you to know that some stranger in a library thinks you are remarkable. And I hope you already knew that. But just in case you did not, now you do. I folded that note very carefully and put it in my coat pocket. And I picked up my blue thermos. And I walked to the left side of the library. And I sat down. He looked up from the book he was not reading. And he said, hi. And I said, hi. And outside the library, the city went about its loud and complicated business, completely unaware that 2 people who had been living quietly and carefully and a little bit alone had just, without any drama or any audience or any grand gesture at all, found each other in the most ordinary and most extraordinary way possible between the pages of borrowed books. A city that had felt too big. Until suddenly, it did not anymore.